принимает президент нашей радиостанции Анна Пекерман.
Знаменитости, спорт, музыка, развлечения, юмор и все остальное, что делает жизнь яркой.
Радио RUSA. Made in the USA.
105,1 FM HD2 в Нью-Йорке.
103,5 FM HD2 в Майами.
102,1 FM HD2 в Филадельфии.
А также в приложении iHeartRadio по всей Америке. Радио RUSA.
Hello, здравствуйте всем. Ну, действительно, вторник стал уже теперь по-настоящему моим любимым днем, потому что у нас в эфире один из самых известных и признанных раввинов нашего времени, раввин Менис Фридман. И хочу еще раз тоже напомнить всем, что он отвечает на вопросы не только, которые задаю я, но и на любые вопросы, которые интересуют наших слушателей. И, пожалуйста, присылайте их по нашему СМС 347-460-0877. И сейчас уже, конечно, не буду терять больше времени, и сразу перехожу к нашему разговору с раввином Менисом Фридманом. Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much again. Tuesday has become my favorite day of the week for sure. It's a great honor and a pleasure to have you with us to shed wisdom into our lives. And I'll start right away with a question. We have announced it to our audience earlier. The perception is that the evil is winning. Is that the right perception or the wrong perception?
You want to know what I'm hoping or what's real? The evil cannot win. We have to begin with that assumption. It can't. Why? Because it's evil. See, if evil and good were equally true, then there would be a problem and there would be a question. But since they're not equal, the evil cannot win. Particularly today, the evil is simply the absence of light. It's ignorance. It's neglect, lack of education. It wasn't always this way. In the past, there were evils that threatened. But that's because they were hiding behind an ideal. And the ideal kept them alive. The ideal was either a religion, and you're not allowed to question a religion, or it was a political philosophy. You're starting up with the government. You're starting up with the big boss, who is trying to make things better. But in whatever the facade, the evil hides behind goodness, and that's where it can confuse people and lead people to the wrong conclusion. Today, the evil is not hiding or very, very poorly concealed. Like all these riots and everything is because of the death of a man by the police. No, it's not. It's like it's not hiding. Nobody is even trying to justify what's happening in the streets. So there's really no contest. The evil is so empty that it cannot win. It is still hurtful, but it's losing its legitimacy, its claim to existence. So it's literally committing suicide.
But that's not what we see, unfortunately. It seems like it's escalating. It seems like we've discussed it before, that people have both good and evil in them. And it seems like right now, unfortunately, it's not the good that is coming out. Unfortunately, the initial reaction is not one of kindness or compassion or even care for another.
This is true. Right now, the evil is coming out, but it's coming out in such a fashion that it's destroying itself. So yeah, it's shocking how blatant, how chutzpahdik the evil is. It's never been so unapologetic. But that's its last effort. It's undoing itself. So yes, it is coming out. So what we're going to see in the news is going to be bad news. But that's how evil dies.
Should we expect something worse before we expect something better?
I don't know what could be worse. You could expect people who you thought would be on the right side to end up on the wrong side. That will be shocking. When the truth starts to show itself, it will be shocking. But it will also be pleasantly surprising to see where the good is coming from. Stand by for surprises. The people you least expect will become the heroes. That's a solid prediction.
Well, it's just it's hard, this waiting period. I know you've been, I'm sorry. You told us about it. You said that this is all going to be this is what to be expected, and it's happening, and it's scary, but at the same time, it's very hard to keep sanity at a time like this. Do you have advice of how to stay calm, cool, and collected until things become better?
Well, look, this is why it's so important what you're doing and that we're having this conversation. Because, yeah, you can easily be confused and convinced that the battle is going the wrong way. The ship is going down, but it's not. So just a little patience and we'll see it.
A little we might have in us, but
How much is a little?
yeah. Any maybe some kind of advice you can give as far as what can people do to keep the calm? How can they work with themselves in accordance to the Torah teachings and the Tanya teachings of how to make themselves calm, collected, and understand that this is just a period that we're going through, that this is not it.
Well, there are two realities going on. The reality of what's happening in my life and what I see in the papers. What's happening in my life is all good. The corona experience, the isolation, it's all been very positive. It's brought out beautiful traits and goodness in people, in families, in communities. That hasn't gone away. We've gotten distracted by the noise in the street and the corruption of politics, which is kind of redundant. Politics has been, by definition, corrupt. But it's got to get better, and it will get better. So in order to be more confident and more secure in the goodness that is not yet visible in the streets, we should focus more on the goodness that we can control, that is more personal and more under our freedom of choice. So if I feel like I'm getting better, it helps a lot to imagine that the world is getting better too. But if I feel like I'm slipping, then how can I expect the whole world to get better?
You said that until the change takes place in government somewhere where it's going to make a difference, we're just pretty much on standby. but there's such a tremendous split in authority right now that what do you think is going to tip that scale?
You're talking about politics?
Yes.
It's going to be a surprise, whatever it's going to be. Where it's going to come from, how it's going to happen, we have no idea. And that's part of the excitement, by the way. You never know. You open up the papers or you turn on the news and you don't know what you expect to hear, because anything is possible.
And you can't plan more than a minute ahead.
Right. Every story you hear, you say, wow. And then a minute later, no, that didn't happen. It wasn't like that. So it's a bumpy ride, and it's hard to draw a conclusion because we're in the middle of something very elusive. So don't try to come to conclusions. Don't try to predict what's going to happen. But enjoy if you can the mystery and the process, and it's like a good movie with twists and turns, and good guys become bad guys become the good guys. It's better than fiction.
It's reality.
No one could make up a story like this.
Reverend Friedman, let's talk a little bit about authority, about civil law enforcement. It seems to be the biggest discussion of today, whether we need more law enforcement, less law enforcement, let the people rule, no, let's have stricter rules. So can you just tell us, how does the Torah treat this particular topic? Does the civil world need strong authority and law enforcement?
It depends on what we mean by that. Let's put it in the context of Mashiach. The coming of Mashiach can be confusing in two ways. There will be those who have seen no sign of hope. They don't see that Mashiach is any closer, any more real, any more realistic. They don't see it. It's way off in the future. Yes, the world is going to get better. It has to get better, but not in my lifetime. I don't know why people like that idea. It should happen, but leave me alone. Like, I don't want to be there when it happens. So there are those who don't see it as imminent. Then you have those on the opposite extreme. They think it already happened. They're thinking and living as if Mashiach was already here. So let's use this as an example. When Mashiach comes, will we need police?
No.
Not against crime. We'll need police to keep order when we're having a big parade. We'll need the police to march in the front. Looks good. A police band. We'll need police to rush people to the hospital to have babies. It'll all be positive. So there are those who in their imagination are jumping ahead and they're saying we don't need police anymore. It is a beautiful idea. It really is. Imagine a world where police don't need guns or handcuffs. That would be beautiful. And it will happen, but we're not there yet. So to do it now would be dangerously premature. But the idea of police in the first place in a democracy, because this is where the confusion is. It seems like if we're a real democracy, we don't need police. And if we have police, then it's a dictatorship. Police are dictators. They're enforcers. So you're imposing and enforcing laws on me that I don't want. That's a dictatorship. So then what's a democracy? A democracy should not need armed police. Shouldn't. Why? How? What does democracy have to do with violence or crime and police? The ideal is democracy is a group of people who have certain values, and they want to live by those values. They want to. But, human nature, misunderstandings, conflicts between people, all of them intending good and wanting to be good. So you need police and courts and judges to rule on these disagreements. But the point is that the police are there to do what you want, to enforce the laws that you want to live by. That's called a democracy. Dictatorship is police who are enforcing the laws that the government wants, not the ones that the people want. So if the people want the laws that we have, and the police are enforcing the laws that we want, why do you need guns? You just need the authority in case there's a dispute, in case we see things differently. Somebody has to resolve that difference. So you turn to the authority, to the judge, to the court, through the policeman, and the court decides, according to the rules that we want to live by, the court will decide in this particular case who is right and who is wrong. It turns out that as beautiful as that concept is, it doesn't really work. That people get together and agree to live a certain way. And then they hire police to enforce the values that they themselves chose and agreed on. 2 generations later, you still agree on the same values? What if the values of the people change? Well, then the police have to change. That means the government has to change, and the courts have to change, and the judges have to change. Adjust to the will of the people. What if the will of the people becomes nasty? So the whole thing is just so fragile. It works on an individual basis. For this generation, like let's say the founding fathers, for that generation who came with a very clear ideal because they were running away from the evils of Europe. Okay, so 2 generations, 5 generations. It's not going to last forever. People change. What happens if the change is greater in the government than it is in the people? Or greater in the people than it is in the government? Well, we got problems. That's why the success of democracy has been that it was developed for people who already have a set of laws, not an agreed value, which they can change at any time. A set of laws that they cannot change. The people can't change it, and the government can't change it. And that's what they mean by inalienable rights. Inalienable means you can't argue with it. It can't change because it was given by our Creator. So the people who came and established this democracy were not making up stuff. It wasn't a fiction that they all agreed on. Let's all be nice and get along and be liberal. That was not the case at all. They had some very strong do's and don'ts. The 10 Commandments. They wanted a government that will support those 10 Commandments, but they didn't depend on the government to enforce it. It was enforceable by virtue of of the truth of the commandments, not by consensus. Today, the people who are criminal never heard of the Bible. They never heard of the Bible. They have no idea what it says. They have no idea what it is. They have no idea what God is. They have no idea what laws are, commandments. They never heard thou shalt not steal. They never heard thou shalt not murder. They really never heard it. For some people, that's really hard to believe. How can you not know about God? How can you not know there's a Bible, 10 commandments? Talk to the average kid on the street.
Rabbi Friedman, you think it's not knowing, not caring?
How can you care about something you don't even know? And if you ask the kids and they say, oh yeah, we heard about the Bible, what did they hear about the Bible? That it's an irrelevant book for fanatics. So obviously the law has to be enforced and crime has to be punished. But we have to look at the cause. Get to the source of the problem. We're raising children with no morals, and then we're punishing them for being immoral. That's not quite just. It's not fair.
We got a question from one of our listeners. Shouldn't the laws change with the times, including religious laws, since the world is changing?
Let's talk about the familiar laws. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie and bear false witness, be good to your mother and father. When will that change and why should it? It should never change. Never.
Kind of did.
It did?
Well, the way people treat their parents, yes, kind of.
Oh. The law didn't change. We're just not following it. Why should the law against adultery change? It'll be better without that law. It'll be better if we don't get married. It'll be better if marriage is not sacred. Why would it change? On the contrary, it should become more and more appreciated, more and more devotion to it, and reap all the benefits that it brings. Now, I understand the question. In some gray areas, of course, there's going to be change. Life is fluid. So you have to be a little stricter here, a little more lenient there, but you don't change the law. You try to adjust your life to the law, not the laws to your life. Now, laws of the land, that's a different story. Should we get rid of taxes? Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Is it a practical idea? Can a government exist without taxes? Probably not. But it's not like we should always pay taxes.
But what you said earlier, that a lot of people do think that the Bible is for religious fanatics. I believe probably more people today believe that we should follow it or live by it.
Yeah.
Can we change people's mind? I mean, what will change people's mind?
Life will change people's mind, because if these laws are really indispensable, we're going to find out. We're going to see it in real life. But most of the people who think that the Bible or the Torah is irrelevant probably never read it from cover to cover. Certainly didn't read it in depth with the commentaries and with the insights and with the true understanding of the text, because no text is self-explanatory. So even when you have directions in a recipe, can't get it straight. Oh, I forgot, okay. So written instruction always needs live commentary by the right people who understand it properly and who can translate it into action and into life. So more and more people are turning to the Torah. We're talking about the Torah, not the New Testament. More and more people are turning to the Torah because life is proving the truths.
The biggest problem right now is that people don't know in depth anything or even remotely, yet everybody has an opinion about everything.
Yeah.
And this is the time of the opinion. And this creates a major mess. And how does one react to that particular situation?
Just using a little bit of logic and common sense. That's all you need. For example, this guy is arguing with me that there's no reason to believe in God because evolution has explained the origins of the universe. So I said to him, science has not explained the origins of the universe. Got a long way to go. He said, oh, fine, okay. But with time, we will find the answer. I said, are you sure? He says, absolutely. I said, is there a possibility that you might be wrong? He says, no. I said, you're more religious than me. You're a fanatic. No wonder we can't have an intelligent conversation. This is a clash between two religions, two blind faiths. If you cannot be wrong, then you're not a scientist. You're a dogmatic fanatic. The beauty of science is it's always wrong because tomorrow will bring new discoveries, new wisdom. Only God can be permanent, unchanging, eternal. So it shows that even if you don't formally believe in God, you never read the Torah, so on and so forth, there is a desperate need in the human being to know what is for sure. You can't live with doubts, with uncertainties. You have to have your feet firmly planted on something you can rely on, something that will not slip away when you're not looking. Science doesn't provide that. It's not supposed to provide that. The only way we know anything for sure is from the Torah, which is really something that we don't appreciate enough. What your senses tell you leave you in doubt. Oh, but I saw it with my own eyes. What exactly did you see? Oh, well, I thought you're interpreting what you saw. You don't know if it's correct. I heard it myself. I touched it. I tasted it. I smelled it. You're not sure what you saw, what you heard, what you touched. You're not sure. Your senses cannot tell you anything for sure. Because, al tam voreach, somebody says, I tasted the soup, it's really good. It's really, really good. Somebody else tastes it and say, this is horrible. So what's the truth? The truth is, You can't determine truth by your senses. Two people witness the same scene. They can't agree on what happened. They saw different things, looking at the same scene. So where do we get certainty from? So here's a very simple fact of life, but a little shocking for most people. Intellectuals are the most insecure people in the world. Because intellect cannot tell you what is true. It can tell you what makes sense. It can tell you what seems to fit together well. It can explain or answer a question. But is it the truth? How are we supposed to know? No matter how brilliant your idea is, someone a little more brilliant is going to come along and present a much better picture and a much greater explanation that you missed. That's the history of science.
Rabbi Friedman, it's very hard right now because it seems like we're sitting and waiting. I mean, it seems like it's kind of plateau for a lot of people. Even when we were more out there, we were interacting, we had more opportunities to help each other, be kinder to each other. Now it seems people are a little bit scared, kind of dispersed, things are happening, no one has any control over it. And what can one person do at this particular time? Just sit and wait it out?
That's why right from the beginning, we kept talking about how much better it is. Not plateau, not waiting, improving by the day. So yes, there were more opportunities to do kindness when we could travel and run around. There was more opportunity to do damage also. And because we were so rushed and so distracted, we did a lot of damage even without intending to. Now, we can still do damage. We can hurt the people at home. But we have time to think, to catch ourselves, to realize, whoa, I'm doing damage here. I didn't mean to do that. Why would I want to do that? So there is a virtue, of course, to social interaction, but there's also a virtue to quiet time. The previous Rebbe was arrested by the communists, and it was a horrible, of course, a horrible experience. And he later wrote in his diary that for no price in the world would he ever agree to another minute of that torture. But at the same time, for no price in the world would he give up the experience that he already had. There is something about the quiet, the isolation, the aloneness, where you can hear yourself think. It does something for the soul. And I guess we need that kind of downtime right now because we've been so busy, so widespread, spread thin. We've been all over the place. You know, they discovered that some children are ADD. No, the whole generation is ADD. Nobody has any patience. Nobody has any attention span. We're all frazzled, and we need to slow down. So a lot of good is coming from this. It's not just waiting. We're waiting for the world, for the street out there to catch up. That's true. We're waiting for the politicians to catch up. But in our lives, we're doing very well. Let's not forget that. And let's not minimize that.
Last question. What about the element of fear? How do we deal with that at this time?
First of all, stop listening to the news.
We're in the media, we can't.
Turn off the news. It's just aggravating and frightening. And that's all it is. It's not enlightening at all. Unless you're watching and seeing the progress of how evil is becoming absolutely absurd, ridiculous, unacceptable, intolerable, and it's over. It is literally destroying itself. And here and there you see some goodness popping up and you say, whoa, there is hope. So it takes a little bit of faith, which is always necessary, indispensable. And faith doesn't mean a religious belief. People who have no religious belief can be optimistic. They can have faith in the ultimate truth. They're not sure who is in charge of the ultimate truth. They're not sure who is the author of ultimate truth, but they're sure it's going to be good. And we need to know that. We need to believe that. And we don't have to explain where we're getting this confidence from or this optimism from. It's the way human beings function best. When we're optimistic, when we know that goodness will win in the end, when we know that it's got to be better than this is not as good as it gets, that we can actually contribute. It's not passive. Faith is not passive. Let God do what he wants. That's not faith.
Faith is knowing that it's all going to be okay at the end.
Yeah. Just letting God do what he wants. You have no choice in that. Nobody's asking you whether he can do what he wants. Actually, this kid, teenager, came to his conservative rabbi after a summer in a camp where he discovered that there's this thing about reading from the Torah. He never saw that. Observance of Shabbat, he never saw that. Now he comes back from camp and he goes to his rabbi and he says, how do I keep Shabbat? And the rabbi said, whatever is meaningful to you, find a way to have a meaningful day. Choose what is meaningful to you. The boy was respectful, but he thought to himself, what do you get paid for? To tell me that I can do what I want? I have always done what I want. What are you telling me, that I should do what I want? They pay you for this? So, on the other hand, to say, let God do what he wants. Right, they pay you for this? God does what he wants with or without us. So what role do we play? The role we play is trust that God is on our side. And that it will be good not only for him, it'll be good for us. That's called faith. Of course, God will do what he thinks is right. And of course, he should. He should do what he thinks is right. But is what he thinks right not right for us? Are we at odds? What's good for him is not good for us? And what's good for us is not good for him? See, that's the whole point of Judaism. The whole point of the revelation at Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments, with the 5 books of Moses, the whole thing is to tell you that God's good is the same good that you can appreciate. Good for him is good for you, and what's good for you is good for him. You're not in a battle. You're not fighting with him. He's not here to impose unnatural behavior on you. You both have the same values, only he knows them well because he wrote them.
Reverend Friedman, thank you so much. So having faith is not being passive. And I think that is probably the most important message of today that we can tell to the world. So thank you so much once again for your amazing wisdom, for being with us, for your time. And I just want to let people know out there that itsgoodtoknow.org is one of my favorite places to be to get wisdom, or Manus Friedman YouTube channel. So I absolutely appreciate your time, and so look forward to the next week. And maybe next week we can reveal a little bit more secretive information to the Russian community about what is happening to the world. Maybe we'll just get a little bit more mystical next time. Would you mind that? Unless the world presents us with something unexpected again.
It will.
So until next week, Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much, and have a wonderful, wonderful week.
You too. Thank you.
Кстати, хочу просто от себя лично сказать, что если кто-то хочет поговорить напрямую с Рэбби Фридманом, без посредников, 1 на 1, то телефон, по которому можно позвонить, это 1-800-656-56-69. Уверяю, что никакой рекламы, просто я знаю, насколько этот человек мудрый, насколько он знающий, насколько с ним приятно общаться, поэтому просто чисто советую абсолютно от себя 1-800-656-56-69. Спасибо всем, кто был с нами. До следующей недели.